Hi everyone, welcome to this chat session to learn more about being a sports psychologist at NYSI. Today with us we have Shermaine. So before we begin, Shermaine, could you just briefly introduce yourself?
Thanks, Terry. I'm Shermaine. I'm 30 this year. I'm a sports psychologist, performance pathway scientist in sports psychology. And I used to play table tennis and do a bit of running growing up.
So Shermaine, can you tell us when did you join NYSI?
I joined NYSI in November 2017. So it's been about 4.5, close to 5 years now.
Oh, okay. So what do you do at NYSI?
So my main role is in sports psychology. I work with athletes, but I also work with coaches as well as the NSA's team managers around the athlete's mental aspect. And we always talk about how there are three very important things when we consider an athlete. So there's the performance aspect, which I think is very intuitive, but there's also the well-being and also long-term development as well. So we consider how all these three different aspects contribute to an athlete and an athlete's development. And we want to ensure as much as possible that all these three are kept. I think beyond that, I work with very specific sports and trying to understand these sports a bit better and find out how we can better support them, especially in the field of sports science. Yeah.
Okay. So then can you tell me what made you choose NYSI 4 years ago?
Honestly, it's also because there was a job opening. The timing really came together. But I always wanted to become a sports psychologist anyway. And that's why I applied when the opening came up.
Okay, then how do you come to realize, I want to become a sports psychologist? How do you come to realize that?
When I was an athlete myself in secondary school, I struggled a lot with the mental aspect of the game. And there were a few instances where I actually thought about how I could somehow regulate my emotions, how I could manage my own anxiety so that I could perform a bit better. And I could see a very distinct difference between how I felt in training and how I felt in competition. I think there was also one very specific match in particular that I still remember, so in tennis, it's actually a best of 5, and I was already losing the first two sets. So if I lost the third set, I would have lost the whole game. But yet, one thing that I remember thinking about was, not wanting to give up, just wanting to keep trying, keep executing what I trained for. And eventually I did manage to overcome and win the next 3 sets and eventually that whole match. So I think there was one instance where I felt that it was really a largely mental game. It wasn't really a technical game anymore. So I think through all these experiences, I've come to realize the importance of the mental aspect, and I always wanted to find out more and then help athletes so be able to regulate their emotions, to manage their anxiety.
Yeah. So can you share with us what was the path that you took to get to where you are today?
When I was choosing my university, there were a few options that I considered, but I eventually ended up choosing the sports science and management degree in NTU. From there, I actually also asked my FYP supervisor, and I told him that I wanted to become a sports psychologist. How can I do that? So he recommended that I pursue a PhD or at least do some kind of further study because sports science degree is quite generic. So that's what I did. I spent another 3-ish years under him doing my PhD. And just as I was about to complete my PhD, I applied for my current job. And that's where I made the switch from the theory side to the applied side. Yeah.
I see. Then do you have any interesting or funny stories to share during this entire journey? It can be during your, education time, or it can also be during this during this time at NYSI?
How about instead of funny, I share about fun?
Yeah, sure.
I think that traveling with athletes can be quite fun, even though it's also tiring. And there's really a lot of fun that you actually have with them when you experience really eating with them, traveling with them, interacting more with them. I find that really fun. And that's something that I really enjoy during this journey.
Great. So do you have any word of advice for like budding sports psychologists or even just in general sports scientists out there?
Very interesting journey coming into the field of sports. Sometimes it can be quite discouraging because you might feel like you're not really making much impact or the work takes a long time to be executed, or essentially what you're trying to push for may take time. But at the end of the day, it's definitely something special. It's definitely something that's different. It's definitely something that is worth doing, especially if you enjoy it, which I do. So word of advice is to press on, hang in there, be patient.
Okay, and then one last question, okay. If you were to recruit someone or like, like you want someone to join your team, what kind of person are you looking out for, or how would you recruit that person?
Looking for one person, probably someone who is a team player. Someone who is open to feedback, open to learn, open to share, just generally a bit open.
Okay. And with that, we have come to the end of the questions. Thank you so much for your time, Shermaine.
Thank you.